Sean Meyers now joined by the head coach of the Greater Latrobe Wildcats, Ron Prady, after his team's thrilling overtime victory, upsetting Highlands in the first round of the 4A playoffs. And first off, Coach, congratulations. I know you went into that game as an underdog, but you're able to pull off the upset on the road. I'm sure there was a lot of excitement to get the first playoff win since 1968. What was that moment like when you secured that victory in overtime?
Well, it was most thrilling for our kids. You know, the work they've put in, hearing about the drought for years, and our kids to like I said, put the work in and to execute and to fight their tails off and come out with a win was really exciting for those guys.
28-21, you knock off Highlands in overtime. It's not the first time that you've won an overtime game this season. Back at the very early stages of the campaign, you knocked off Franklin Regional. Is there any benefit to already having that experience playing overtime, since it is really a much different format than regulation play?
I think it didn't hurt. Both times we had to go on offense first, which is no big deal. But we also practice it in the scrimmage with Norwin this year. We went 2 overtime sessions. So, that was a good thing too. But, I thought they were dead tired at the end of regulation. Highlands was. And our kids were still, I think running on a lot of adrenaline, but our kids were still, seemed like they had a lot of energy. So we felt pretty good at that time, at that moment.
For a team like yours that hasn't had a lot of postseason success, as we mentioned, you haven't won a playoff game in over 50 years. Sometimes it's about making sure that everyone believes that you can win. Was there a point in the game where you kind of realized our guys are locked in and we have a real chance to pull this off?
Well, we never had to lead until overtime. So there was no point where we thought, we got this thing in the bag at all. It was back and forth. They scored first, we answered next series. They scored the next, we answered. Every time they scored, we answered the very next series. Obviously there were a lot of possessions in there where there was no score, but not until that Jaton Williams pick on about the 3-yard line did we feel like this game's over.
Talk about your sophomore quarterback, John Wetzel. I know he didn't have a prolific passing game in terms of the yardage, but he threw for a couple of touchdowns, and he's a guy that I think has pretty steadily grown from the start of the season up to this point. What stood out about his play?
Well, he's really grown, and the big thing is the efficiency which he's throwing the ball. It's not like he's going 6 for 18. He's 6 for 8. He's 7 for 7 some games, 7 for 10. And we don't throw it a ton, obviously, but when we do, he's been very efficient and for the most part taking care of the football. However, this week, he converted a huge 3rd and 13 on a scoring drive with his feet, and it was an amazing run. To stay in bounds, he leaped the kid, broke 2 tackles when he hit the ground, and that was a huge play for us. And then I think he carried the ball 3 straight plays after that. He kind of took over that drive, and John's come a long way, and he's going to continue to grow.
Now, Robbie Fulton, the all-time single-season record holder for Wildcats history, he had another big game with a couple of touchdowns. The yardage total wasn't what we're accustomed to seeing, but I know you're going against a really good team, so his hard-earned yards. His performance obviously stood out as well, especially the overtime touchdown. Was it pretty clear once you got to overtime that you were going to be giving him the football?
It's not a bad thing to give Robbie the ball in overtime. We saw, it was effective for us at Franklin Regional, and that's probably the guy we want the ball in his hands in that moment. The first half we only ran 15 plays. They kind of controlled the clock. We had 2 turnovers that shortened our drive. So, Robbie got the ball a lot more in the second half, and he I think he wore him down a little bit too.
Well, you talk about your turnovers, but your defense also forced a number of turnovers against a pretty prolific quarterback in Chandler Timmons, one of the best that Highlands and really the WPIAL has seen in a long time, a 4-year starter. How did you have success against him?
Well, I think we got in some throwing lanes. Alex Tash had a nice pick on a boot play that he read the route. He got a good drop. He got underneath the ball, and I don't think Timmons ever saw him. And then the first one was a deep ball they tried to throw, and Colin Stevens made a heck of a play on that ball too. And then the last one, obviously, in overtime, Jaton with a pretty good play. But each time we felt like he was on the move, but he made some great throws on the move. But two of those three, he was on the run a little bit. We had some pressure on him, and that helped.
Well, the takeaway is just part of what was a terrific defensive effort, holding Highlands to 21 points, including overtime. This is a team that even in their one loss had put up a lot of points and yardage. So overall, as a defense, what really allowed your team to have that success? And maybe who are some of the players who stood out?
Well, I think it's just not giving up big plays over the top, and if we do that, we have a chance. But some of those guys were like, Alex Tash played really well. Danny Calabrese plays well. Timmy Meyers is the other defensive end. He's played well. Johnny Wetzel's been fantastic for us on defense. And Corey Borio, Jaton Williams. Don Flanagan is really solid at the corner for us. A guy that doesn't get a ton of credit, but a really good tackler. Plays with good technique out there at corner. So we have a lot of guys that have stepped up defensively.
Was Danny Calabrese extra motivated by that Baldy breakdown?
Maybe he wanted another one.
So before we look ahead, and obviously there's a big one upcoming, just try to encapsulate what this means for the program to get this playoff victory and how it maybe has grown the confidence of your players even more heading into the next one.
Yeah, I think that's the important part is that our players, I think, now believe that we can play with anybody. I think at the end of the year, we'll look back and, if there's any nostalgia about winning a playoff game, we'll talk about it then. But right now, we're just focused on, getting prepared for this Friday and playing TJ. But it was exciting for our kids. There's excitement in the school and in the community. So all that, is great for our program and great for our kids.
So you mentioned TJ, Thomas Jefferson, a team that you played in the regular season and played very competitively, albeit in a loss. Seeing them the second time around, what maybe do you need to do differently?
Well, I know it's going to be tougher this week. They're a lot better, obviously, than they were in week 4. But again, we have to limit big plays against those guys, and they're tough to run the ball on. They're tough to throw. They're a typical TJ team that does everything well. They're big. They run to the ball. They're strong. So it's going to be really tough on us. But we're going to prepare this week and see what happens Friday night.
One thing that Thomas Jefferson typically excels at is running the football. And I know that they have a pretty strong arm quarterback this year, but it seems like they do their best work when they keep it on the ground by and large. And Elias Lippin caught part of that, certainly. How do you try to slow down a running game that, quite frankly, very few opponents can slow down?
I don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out this week. It's going to be tough. But, we have to be in our run lanes. We got to play cutback runs. We have to do near perfect technique to be in the game with these guys, and their run game certainly sets up their play action. They're really good at play action, and the kid's deep ball is really impressive. He can drop it in there just about anywhere. So it's going to be a battle, and I think we're going to be up for it though.
You coached a Wisconsin commit a year ago in Cade Yakimelli. Now you're going against one with Thomas Jefferson's Jordan Mayer, and I know that he's a pretty special player in his own right. Talk about how he impacts the game, what he does well, and how you will have to try to focus on limiting his effectiveness. Yeah,
he's so long. He's got some of the longest arms I've ever seen, and he's just disruptive. He has a great first step off the ball. You pretty much have to double the kid every play, and otherwise, he's going to be in your backfield, being disruptive. But no, he's a great player, much like Cade was. And, that's why those guys are playing in the Big Ten.
Does he typically line up as a defensive end on that side of the ball?
Typically, yeah. And he's effective at tight end, too. They get him the ball at tight end a lot, too.
So Thomas Jefferson is a team familiar with playing in the postseason and playing in big games. I know your team isn't. Is there any way that you can try to overcome that aspect of it? Well,
I think the good thing is we've played there this year already. We've played at TJ. We've we've been to that stadium. We've have some idea what it's like down there. So hopefully that will that comfort level will help our kids when we go down there Friday. But ultimately, at 7:00, it's another football game, and that's the thing that we stress: just go play, and play really hard.
I've asked John Ruane this question, so I'll ask it to you as well. You're going against one of the most storied and accomplished coaches in WPIAL history, and Bill Chirpek. Does that motivate you to be even better? Does that bring out the best in you as a coach going against a legendary opponent like him?
No, because it's not me and him on the field. Obviously, we have some impact, but it's our players versus their players, and we're going to do the best job we can Monday through Friday to prepare our team, and I'm sure he's going to do the same. And then, we'll get out there, and ultimately it comes down to who makes the least mistakes. Don't turn the ball over, don't have major penalties. That's a huge factor in the game, and that's what we're focused on right now.
Well, Ron, I know you mentioned it briefly, but what's the atmosphere like, the vibe like around the community? I know you teach at Greater Latrobe, so you're probably getting a lot of congratulations just walking around, but what's the feeling like?
I think there's some excitement in the program, and that's good. Our kids have earned that. They've played hard. They've won 7 games to this point. But it's an exciting time right now, and we tell our kids to relish it and enjoy it during the day. But when they come out here at 3:00, we got to get to work.
Well, yeah, certainly enjoy it, and hopefully you get to enjoy it a week longer or so. So congratulations on getting this point, and good luck on Friday.
Thanks, Sean.
Absolutely. Ron Prady, the head coach for Greater Latrobe.